Welcome. So, to what extent does technology determine how war is fought? It might be helpful to start by looking at some definitions. And we take war as quite a broad definition of a confrontation between actors, and technology to mean anything that supports the war effort. So, if we jump back into history and look at 15th century Europe, gunpowder had just arrived from the East, and Europeans decided to smartly use it to try and defeat the installations and fortifications of medieval Europe. And because of this, the defenders adapted their fortifications to be wider and bigger, and this in turn meant larger garrison sizes and larger standing armies. And so this is how one technology, gunpowder, has gone and completely changed and increased the size of armies. If we jump forward to 20th century geopolitics, and we look at the competition between the United States and the USSR on many fronts, on cyber, on space, in proxy wars, ideologically, politically, but they were also competing on a nuclear level. And the US had just improved their nuclear systems with a marginal improvement, which made their missiles more accurate. And this meant that they could specifically target the USSR's missile silos. And the issue with that was that it would eliminate the USSR's ability to retaliate. And as a result, Triad was born. And the different states had then to adapt to this and react to this by putting nuclear weapons in submarines, dispersing them, and allowing them to be deployed by air, which was already a possibility. And these were both on quite high levels, but on a much on the ground level, communications of concentrated firepower has meant that it's quite dangerous to have large groupings of soldiers together, and soldiers have been now able to fight further apart, and this has led to a dilation of battlefield time and space. And the good thing is that there are fewer casualties. But so far we've looked at large opponents and large nations, and in modern conflicts, in fact, the conflict is often between insurgents and a local government, or between two bordering nations, rather than a massive conflict between great powers. And if we look at the examples of the Taliban, the Viet Cong, and in Iraq, where they operate in small cells, they've taken cyber and digital and as an advantage. They've used it for funding, for training, for communications, and for intelligence. And it hasn't just been terrorist and insurgent organizations that have used these tools. Large nations have also used this, and the primary reason why they do is because of the deniability and how you can contain the casualties, and you can reciprocate proportionally to different actions. And when Israel's water treatment facility was hacked, an Iranian port was hacked in response. And these kinds of activities of sabotage in this case, but they could also be subversion and espionage, are very old, and you'd find them in ancient Greece and ancient Rome. But the cyber now offers a new avenue for these activities to happen, and it empowers states and non-state actors to make these happen. So technology has just offered new capabilities, but it hasn't necessarily changed the core actions and what has been the core actions of states. Then, aside from looking at technology, we should also acknowledge that there are other things that contribute to the war-fighting effort. So, for example, logistics and administration were key in the Napoleonic Wars, and obviously key in the wars thereafter. And then there's other factors, more tactical, operational factors. For example, the British cavalry in the Boer Wars were not acclimatized to the warm climate, which meant that they were not able to gallop and charge at the enemy effectively, and this in result meant that you lost all the advantages that cavalry would normally bring. In the Second World War, the Germans on paper would not have had enough armaments to fight and to defeat France, but by daring and speed and surprise, they were able to. And we should also consider other wider societal factors, because armies and governments are made of people, and if these institutions and these groups collude, they might satisfy some financial, prioritize and benefit financially as well as militarily from certain examples. And this is primarily in the form of the dreadnoughts in the First World War. They had better and newer technology, which was sold to the admirals, and they had new dreadnoughts. But then, because of poor weather conditions in the North Sea, this one wasn't able to be used. So, in summary, technology has changed and changed how wars are fought, But the fundamental activities, for example, in the cyber example, sabotage, cyber and espionage, remain the same, and everything is subjugated by human nature.